四完咗係咪？自己其實唔使啦，因為咁嘅，我突然間講個數據。Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening. I'm Yap here.
I'm Ng here. So welcome to today's webinar on the computer hardware. So why do we have the idea of making this webinar is from time to time we receive questions from our students about how to choose a laptop. So Mr. Yap, do you get this kind of questions?
Yeah, most of the students actually ask a lot of these kind of questions like, hey, how should I choose the laptop that is suitable for my use? So today we will try to answer your questions to the best that we can.
Okay, all right, great. So let's look at our slides for today.
So we will look into this table of contents over here, and they are mostly to do with the basics for computer hardware and hardware. And yeah, I have a question for you, Mr. Ng.
Yeah.
The processor, right? We always heard that we have i3, i5, and i7. Some of them, they even say that i9. And of course, we know that the higher the number, the better the processor it is. So if let's say I have two same laptop with i5 processor, does it mean that both computers are going to perform the same way?
It depends on your usage. Then, if you are just using the laptop or computer to do a bit of documents, web browsing, or watch a bit of YouTube, so the both i5, regardless of its generations, regardless of its RAM, its hard disk, should not give you a notable difference in the performance. So that is what we are going to talk about tonight. We have this, if you look at the slide here, we got three building blocks of the computer performance, which are the processor, the RAM, the storage. Okay. Okay, so let's now go to the processor here. Now, processor, it means the brain, okay? The brain of the computer. Switch a banner for you to see. So it basically is a brain that gives instructions to the software, to the hardware, so that the computer can perform to the intended usage. So if you look at the screen here, the brain, we have like what Mr. Yap said just now, we have the i3, i5, i7, even i9. So these are the product code or the family, processor family by Intel. So on the market, we have two major brandings. One is Intel, the other one is,
I think it's AMD.
AMD. Okay, AMD. So all right. So if you look at this Intel processor, right? If you want to choose a computer, I think of course, if you say the higher the number, the better performance is. But it also goes by your budget, and then if you know the number is going higher, you can go.
Of course, the price is getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, if you talk about a laptop can cost you 2,000 ringgit, it can actually be just one processor alone, just the processor. Let me show you an example of the processor. I have one here. This is a rather old processor by Intel as well. Okay, so let me move the second camera, all right, and make a solo view. All right, so if you can see, this is the processor. It's quite a tiny size here. The more modern or the newer processor could have a slightly larger physical because it has a higher processing power, right? But basically, this is a processor, and a very expensive processor can sometimes go to about 2,000 ringgit for just one chip. It's just one chip. It's not it's not something very affordable. If you are complaining that a laptop costs 2,000 ringgit, it's expensive, then think of just this one tiny computer processor can actually cost 2,000 ringgit. But of course, it all depends on your need. Then, if you're not a graphic designer, you're not processing 4K video rendering, you do not actually need to go to those options. Then
I see. Okay. If let's say I talk about an i3 processor, just for normal usage like Google Chrome and Microsoft Office documentations.
Yes.
Is it sufficient to have just i3 processor? Do I need to buy an i5 core processor?
I think like what we mentioned just now, right? Okay. Hang on, let me exit the solo. Okay, I think if we recall back the content just now, we have the 3 building blocks for the computer performance. We got the processor, we got the RAM, we got the hard disk, the storage, and this, that. So to your question, whether i3 is sufficient, it really all depends on the other complementing element, whether your RAM is powerful enough, whether your hard disk is fast enough. But if you just talk about browsing webs, watching YouTube, doing a bit of Word document, doing school assignments, and i3 perhaps generation 10 onwards, okay, so you should go into the generation later, will actually be enough then. Because if we do a comparison, right, if you can look at the slide, let me show that. I want to maintain the brain here. Okay, if you look at the slides here, what we have here is an example at the bottom here. We have this i5. Yes, see, let me remove the banner first.
Okay, 510U.
i5 12510U
compared with i5 12210U.
Okay, now how to read this? Actually, it is called i5, which is the family. 12 means generation number 12.
Generation 12.
Yes. At the moment, the latest generation we have is generation 13. All right. So this 12 is
quite new.
It's quite new. It's actually quite. It's very new then. Okay, generation 12.
I think the alphabet at the back means something, right? Like 12210U.
Yeah.
And what actually that means?
Maybe we talk about the 510 and the 210 difference first, and then as the logic goes, the higher the number, the better performance it is. So 510 will perform better than the 210.
I see.
Okay, so when you are choosing your laptop specs, of course, you got to first set your budgets. Maybe you have a budget of, let's say, 2,000 ringgit, 2,500 ringgit for a new laptop. So you might want to go for i3, i5, then generation 12, generation 11, generation 10. Then next the number is 510 or 210. And then next, like what Mr. say, is the U, or if you look at the bottom here, you've got the product line. Okay, the product line, you've got U, you've got Y, you've got T, G, HP, you know. So I think if you're just an average user, okay, you're not a high-end user, these alphabet numbers, you can basically ignore them.
I see.
Okay?
I see.
Yeah. U are normally U, Y, and T. They are normally for laptop because they are more for energy efficiency.
For general usage?
Well, I think they are actually quite powerful to perform additional function tasks than just the normal browsing documents. But they are designed actually mainly for laptop because they consume less energy, that your laptop battery life will last longer. The G and the H and the P are mostly for the desktop. Like you want to go for higher processing power for gaming, for video content creations and this, that.
I see.
Okay.
So no wonder now, sometimes I saw the computers with both are i5 processors, but some are more expensive, like rank up to 4,000 plus. And some are just 2,000 plus. No wonder these are the main differences.
Yes. Now, if you buy a laptop as of today, right, you're going to the store, or you go to online, Shopee or Lazada, whatever, you can actually still find an i5 generation 10. All right, so those are a little bit like the slightly older model, older generations. They are more affordable, but they are actually equally powerful to perform the daily task. Okay.
I see.
Of course, you can afford, you can go for generation 12. Okay, and i3 generation 12 is actually more powerful than the i7 7th generation. So i3 is supposed to be the lowest one, but the 12th generation is more powerful than the i7 in generation number 7. So as of today, I think if you're already on a tight budget, you go for an i3 generation 12. I believe it is already very powerful to perform the average task.
It's definitely sufficient to complete the task within the tight budget.
Yes. If you talk about the tight budget, right, we have another choice. And let's move the slide to the bottom. We have another brand of processor.
which name is AMD.
Yes, AMD. Okay, now AMD, right? I've been in the market for many years. I had used AMD before, and I used Intel before. I don't really notice the difference. Or maybe if you ask the expert, they look at their specification sheet, their testing using certain software or whatever, they do see a difference. But as a day-to-day average user, I don't really see a difference between Intel processor and the AMD processor, right? And then if you look at the slide here, the AMD processor, they equally have the Ryzen 3, 5, 7, and 9, which is having the very similar meaning with the family number of Intel i3, i5, i7, and i9.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're on a tight budget, again, you can go for AMD Ryzen 3, 5. 3 and 5 are actually quite good. Okay, for normal usage. If you want to look for a higher-end experience for gaming, to create content for video, you can go for i7 or even i9 or the Ryzen 7 and Ryzen 9.
From what I see in the market is that AMD are generally much cheaper than Intel processors.
You can see a notable price difference. But then I think, again, as an average user, right, we normally, when you ask advice, which processor should I go for, everyone just say Intel. So I think that is the reason why Intel, if you browse through the Lazada or Shopee, or you go to a physical shop to buy a computer, you will see a lot of laptops and desktops that are preloaded with Intel processor, and that could be the reason. And then if you talk to a non-accounting guy, non-computing guy, right, you can choose AMD processor. They might not even hear of this brand of AMD before.
Yeah.
So they might not want to buy the AMD. They still fall back to Intel. But I think AMD is actually comparable.
It's a good alternative.
Yes, if you see a notable price difference, right, you can just go for AMD. Because I used both before. I mean, the average usage meant for me teaching, working with Microsoft Words, PDF. I don't really see a difference of the two then.
I have been used for AMD processor once.
Okay.
And it's quite well from my experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are actually comparable.
And I have another question from the students is that in a computer we have RAM in smartphone as well, and
yes.
Sometimes the smartphone are having a very high spec of RAM. Of course, the higher the RAM,
the better it is.
The better it is
yes,
and it's more expensive for the price as well.
Yes.
So actually, the higher numbers for RAMs, how does it help the performance for a laptop or a desktop?
Okay, all right. Now, again, we talk about the three building blocks of computer performance. The brain. So you got to have fast brain, powerful brain, good brain. But then if you look at our working environment, right, you also need to have a big desk, a big table. Have you ever attended a class before that they use a flip chair?
Yeah.
A flip chair. Do you enjoy using
a very
tiny space, a flip chair? You can only put your notes, you can't put your water bottle, you can't put your phone, that kind of flip chair.
After half an hour, I feel like I want to get some fresh air very soon.
Yes. As compared to if you have a very large table, which you can put a lot of books, a lot of notes, your drinks, your food, your computer comfortably. You can even sleep on the table. So RAM is like a table. So the bigger the RAM, that means the bigger working desk that you have, right? Now, if you look on the flip chair, let's say you need 2 to 3 sets of notes of books.
At the same time.
So you put one note on your flip chair, and where do you put the other 2?
Okay,
where do you put?
Will be very tough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Normally, where do you put them?
I will close one, then I open the other one.
the closed one, where do you put normally?
Put on the floor.
Put on the floor.
Yeah.
Put in the bag or whatever.
Yeah, probably.
Right? So you will have to have more processing time to take the book, to retrieve the book, to keep another book, to take the book, to keep another book. If you do not have a big table. Right? So if you have a bigger RAM, like my example here on the slides here is 8 GB, 8 gigabyte, DDR4. Right? DDR4 at the moment is not the newest because we already have DDR5. I haven't used a DDR5 before, but I believe
most of the time in the market is still DDR4.
It's still DDR4 because while consumer can still accept DDR4, there's no reason to sell you DDR5 at the moment. Okay, so DDR4, and then there are a lot of numbers at the back as well. So we're going to explain that in detail. So if you're working on Windows 10, all right, Windows 10, Windows 11, 8 GB at the moment is already the minimum. I have a device I can show you later. I brought my 14-year-old laptop, okay, with only 4 GB RAM. 4 GB RAM. So it's run on a Windows 10. It is good enough to do only one task at one time. So if you're watching YouTube, you are not supposed to work on the Word document. You're not supposed to work on the PDF, the PowerPoint. If you're working on PowerPoint, you're not supposed to work on the Word document and vice versa.
Having a small RAM means do one thing at a time.
I might be working on the flip chair, so it's not that fast.
I see.
All right. If you can, you go for 16 GB. So one RAM, if you can look at the slide again, right? We have 2 RAM sizes. And then Mr. Yap also brought us some sample RAM. So let me zoom the camera. Okay.
So this is the sample RAM that I have from a laptop.
Yes. Okay, so this is a laptop.
Small.
Can you bring, okay, let me open it for you, yeah?
The other one is the RAM for a desktop, which
yes,
looks much bigger.
Not easy to open, all right? It's your thing,
for the moment. Okay. I should have opened it.
Yeah, you should have opened it. Never mind, just show it like this. Okay, so this is the longer one is the desktop one, and the shorter one is the laptop one. Okay. All right. They call this kind of RAM as DIMM. Okay, dual inline,
as written over here.
Yeah, dual inline memory module. Okay, DIMM. The smaller one is called SO DIMM. It's still DIMM, dual inline memory module, but it is small outlet. SO, small outlet. So if you want to upgrade your RAM after you have watched this webinar, you might want to upgrade your RAM. You have to be very careful that whether you're buying for a laptop or buying a desktop, you don't want to buy a desktop RAM and then you cannot fit into a laptop. Okay, so either you buy the DIMM or SO small outlet, small for laptop. Okay, right. So then if you look at the slide here, we have certain numbers here which I would not encourage you to look into them, like the 25,600. You don't really need to look into that. And then the mega transfer, right? 3200 MT per second mega transfer. These are basically meaning the speed. So whether you're getting a 3002 or 2006 or 2004, so these are the standardized speed. Right? We don't really see an obvious difference between the two. So I think you just need to be worried of getting a bigger desk, 8 GB as a minimum for Windows 10 and Windows 11, or up to 16 GB. They are not really that expensive, the difference. And then I would not encourage, if you buy a new laptop, right? You buy 8 GB, and then you go and buy another 8 GB and upgrade it by yourself for a couple of reasons. If you open the screw, your warranty void.
I see.
That is first reason.
New laptop. Yeah.
New laptop. Number 2 is you may not know whether the laptop motherboard can fit 2 RAMs. Some computer motherboard, they can only fit one slot only. So if you already have 8 GB inside, you buy another 8 GB. So you can only replace an 8 GB with another 8 GB.
Yeah. So you just didn't upgrade anything.
Yes,
unless you choose a 16 gigabyte RAM and replace with that one slot.
Yeah.
So
all right. So I can advise you, if you're not an advanced user, you can just buy the default setting by the manufacturer. You just go for, if you can. If you look at the budget and you said go for 16, it will give you a peace of mind for next few years. If you go for 8 GB, it is actually still sufficient for our daily tasks then.
Right. Oh, I see.
Okay.
16 gig would be better.
16, I think, if you ask me, right, it becomes the standard. 8 is like, whenever wow, it's only 8,
But for study purpose, I think 8 GB is quite sufficient for general.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But you may not know, after your graduation, you might still stick with the laptop. Like the one that I'm going to show you later, it has been with me for 14 years, so you may have to use this laptop for this amount of time then, all right? Okay, so I think our next thing is about storage. Yes, the storage. Okay, now think of storage as your cabinet, your cupboard, your cabinet to store your files. So traditionally, we are calling it as a hard disk. Okay, hard disk. Why do we call it a hard disk? Is because it really have a hard disk inside. Okay, the disk inside, spinning this magnetic disk inside. But over the years, right, we find that the hard disk is not fast enough to handle the very powerful Microsoft Windows 10, 11. So nowadays, right, if you want to buy a new computer, new desktop, new laptop, I think it is not really that easy to find a laptop with a hard disk drive inside. Okay.
You mean empty one?
No, not an empty one. The hard disk.
The hard disk.
People don't load hard disk anymore to a laptop. They already use SSD. Okay, SSD.
So what you mean is HDD.
HDD hard disk drive. Yes, hard disk drive.
And newer generation now, we call it as SSD.
Yes, SSD. Okay.
SSD is much more faster, right?
They are using the different technology. Hard disk, right? Okay, allow me to show you. I got one here. Okay, again, I want to zoom the camera. All right. Okay, so this looks like an external hard disk box. A box, okay? It's an external hard disk. Okay, it looks like external hard disk. This is actually the hard disk. We call it enclosure. We got a pattern name for it. Okay, we can quite cover it with enclosure. Okay, so the hard disk enclosure, which I can open this. Okay, so if you buy a normal external hard disk, you cannot open this like that because the factory have made it like it's very hard to open. Can open, but it's very hard to open.
With the screw, lock it.
Yeah, everything. I think nowadays they don't use screw, but they use a clip. They just clip it, so you can't even find a screw anywhere. But with the enclosure, right, you can. So what is the purpose of an enclosure? When you purchase the enclosure, right, it's actually come without the hard disk. Okay, it's just a empty black box cover. Just like that, okay, with a bit of a connection point. Okay, if you can see the connection point, and then this is a tiny hole here for you to slot in the USB cable to plug to your computer. And then what Mr. is holding is an 2.5-inch hard disk drive. Okay, if you flip over, you can see there is a small computer board. All right, with then a small tiny spinning wheel in the middle, and inside we actually have the magnetic disk inside, spinning magnetic disk. All right, so if you look at my slide here, the HDD, okay, so let me exit this solo view first. Okay, so if you look at my slide here, the HDD 2.5-inch SATA means the connection point. 1 TB, 1 terabyte, or 1000 gigabytes, 5400 RPM round per minute. So it indicating the speed of the hard disk spinning, 5400 spinning round per minute. This is quite fast and 5000. So hard disk drive, the one that you have seen, I would say it is an old technology as of today. People are still using it mostly for storage. And people will not use a hard disk drive to run a Windows because relatively they cannot handle the powerful Windows.
I see.
Okay. So we have the solid state drive, SSD.
I heard that some of the laptop they are having 2 slots for the hard disk drive. So one of the slot they use is SSD for processor.
Yes.
For running the
Windows
software and Windows and so on.
Yes.
And the other hard drive, HDD, is just for storage purpose, like what Mr. Ng has said.
Yes. Okay. I think the example that you have given me are more to the modified laptop, because a lot of laptop manufacturers, when they first came out with that laptop, right, they straight away just put an SSD inside. They will not load you an HDD. All right. Because if they do that, right, it will add on the weight. It's heavy. Okay, it's heavy. So on the specification sheet, it will not look nice. Your laptop is very heavy. So people might not want to buy your laptop. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing is if you put the hard disk drive together with SSD together, right, it will consume more battery.
Yes.
Because as I mentioned just now, the hard disk drive, it uses a spinning disk technology. So it will constantly spin, even though you're not reading anything, it's just spinning like that. So you consume more battery. So the battery life will not be impressive as well, right? Unless you do a post modification that you are adventurous enough, you open the screw of your laptop and then you add on an HDD inside. So it is possible actually to have 2 types of storage. One is SSD to load the Windows. Another one is hard disk drive, just for the storage then.
So which one would you suggest for us to use for a laptop?
I think if
definitely SSD, right?
If you want to buy a laptop today, again, other than like what we mentioned, most of the laptops are preloaded with Intel processor, 8 GB or 16 GB of RAM, and then the storage, right? They all put SSD as a standard. And it's not just that, because of the competition, right? If you look at under the SSD on the slide here, we have the 2.5-inch SATA. Okay, so I can give you an example. So let me show you my, hang on, yeah. Let me show you my 14-year-old museum, my museum laptop. Okay, this is the one. Okay, the brand is Asus. During my younger time, I call it Asus. I've been calling Asus for many years. Then only I know that it's not right. They call it Asus. But whatever it is, is Asus lah. Okay. All right. So let me open the screw first and show you guys what's inside. Now, even though this is a 14-year-old laptop, right? The internal build will not be very much different, because we still have the 3 building blocks. We have the processor, the brain, we have the RAM, the table, and also the storage, the cabinet. Okay, I already unscrew a few at home to save time. I will just open up one more screw. Okay, so you put it down. So this is a old system, right? So there is a detachable battery, which is a bit rare as of today, because as of today, a lot of laptops, their battery cannot be removed. Okay,
the battery are fit inside the cover.
Inside. So if you want to replace your battery, you have to remove the whole cover things. So during the old days, things are more customizable, repairable. As of today, I think it's not really easy to repair things. Okay, let's uncover it. I've been opening this laptop for many times, changing the processor, changing the RAM, changing the hard disk and this, that. Okay, so you are looking at now this. Okay, let me tell you, don't try this at home. Okay, don't try this at home. Okay, because they have a lot of tiny wires. I heard from Mr. Yap, you have failed your venture one time, that you have broken some wire or something.
I've broken the speaker wire.
You broken the speaker wire.
So the laptop has no more sound afterwards.
Okay, all right. So Mr. Yap have broken his speaker wire because he wants to try things. But I would encourage you, don't try this at home unless you have a 14-year-old laptop for you to experiment. Okay. Now, if you are looking at this laptop here, okay, hang on. Okay, you're looking at, this is a fan actually. This is a fan. Okay, this fan is attached to the processor. I cannot open the fan for you to see, okay, because this fan has a heat sink, which is basically a heat conduction metal attached to the processor, and it has the gel to connect the heatsink and the processor better. All right. So if I open this, the gel will be broken. So I can't, unfortunately, I cannot open for you to see. Okay. So this is a fan. Underneath, there's a processor. And here, if you're looking at this thing here, this is a RAM. Okay. So this is the SODIMM. Mr. Can you hold the laptop, man? Remove. No, they just put it on the table. Just hold. I want to remove the RAM for them to see. So this is the way we remove the RAM. You just unclick it, and then you can just
unplug it.
Yeah, you can just unplug it.
And play.
Yeah, it's a plug and play. It's actually quite easy. If you can compare Mr. Yap's DDR4, is it a DDR4, the one that you're having?
Yep, DDR3.
Oh, DDR3. Okay, so Mr. Yap, this one is DDR3, and my one, this one is DDR2. Okay,
which is the older generation, right?
Yeah, I think how do you want to differentiate these two is actually, if you look at the connection point, right? Hang on, they're actually a bit different here. If you look at my DDR, this is a DDR3, right? The DDR3 connection point has a bigger gap here. Can you see that? All right. And then the DDR2 will have a smaller connection gap. But I think all this will not be very matter to every one of you, because as of today, we have the DDR4 as a standard. Okay. But just to show you, if you are adventurous enough, although I advise you, you can keep this first. Although I advise you not to try this at home, but if you are adventurous enough, you have an old laptop to play with, you can actually replace the RAM. Right? This just method. You want to put it back, you just slot it back, press it down, and that's it. It's clipped. Okay. And then if you look at this compartment side here, okay, let me hold it down. Okay, this is where they put the hard disk.
The hard disk.
Okay, now
storage.
Yes, I will explain different type of SSD later. But now let me show you my. I just put it down. The 2.5 SSD. Okay, 2.5 inch SSD. There are a couple of screws that I need to remove. All right. So you may not want to buy a new laptop, but you may want to upgrade your old laptop. So everything is customizable. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to take it later. Okay. So we have to. Hang on. Yeah, we got to slot out. Take it out like this. Okay. So let me show you. All right. So this is the 2.5 SSD. Okay. Some of you, if you know a bit of the computer components, right, you could be looking at one of the dinosaurs as well, because no one is using things like this anymore. Now it has the form, the physical form is the same as the 2.5 just now, the hard disk driver, but this is much lighter, and it is faster as well. It can be between 4 times to 6 times faster, depending on how expensive your SSD is. Okay, so it can be 4 times or even 6 times faster than the hard disk drive. So if you are so lucky as of today to see a laptop with hard disk drive loaded inside, I encourage you not to buy it, because you will not enjoy the full power of the new laptop. Okay, there has to be at least loaded with a 2.5 SSD. Right. So I'm going to put all these things aside. All right, so now I just chuck it aside first. I'm going to continue our presentation here. Okay, so if I exit the view now, no, I'm going to still stay with the storage. Now, if we the solo layout and looking at the slide again, now if you look at the SSD, right? As of today, Mr. Yap, we have the M.2. Okay, the M.2. Now, I don't have an example of M.2 to show you because it is inside my laptop that I'm using it to do the broadcast. I can't show you. But if you can look at the picture, the photo on the right side here, so there's a very tiny, it looks like a RAM. It looks like a RAM. So that is the M.2 form factor, the physical form of M.2. That is the one. All right. So we got the SSD, we got the hard disk drive, and is that the photo there? So I think I have been browsing some new laptop from different manufacturers lately. I noticed that they are all putting M.2 as a standard. So you buy a new laptop as of today, you most likely get M.2. So M.2, we got 2 types. We got SATA and NVMe. So all these are computer terminology. The latest one is NVMe, non-volatile memory express. That one is the fastest one. So M.2 NVMe, if the manufacturer can give you that, you should just take it. It is extremely fast. It's good for a lot of things. It's good for gaming. It's good for video processing. It's good for a lot of things.
Very much better for the performance, I think, with the processor.
Yeah, I think this is also one thing is a future proof that if you intend to use a laptop for more than 4 years, 5 years, the NVMe is something that you should consider. Okay, as like the one I'm having is already 14-year-old, and occasionally I'm still using that to do teaching. Okay, it can still handle the Zoom quite well, but there's not much of multitasking that we're talking about. All right, so we can look at the next slide now. Yeah,
computer types.
Okay, computer types. Hang on, I think we got messages. I simply just ignore that. Okay, so we have private photo here. What is this? I think there's some scam.
We can ignore.
Yeah, we can ignore. There's some scam or whatever. I thought you guys got a question, right?
Okay, come back to the different computer types that we have. Generally, we have like tablet. Yeah, tablet is what you see over here. Okay, it's very light and it's very good for reading purposes.
Let me zoom it up. Okay.
So this is of course, everybody see
tablet,
before.
iPad and all this. Okay,
yeah,
right.
It's very handy. Actually, it's very light. It actually can handle a lot of tasks like online classes. Shouldn't be a problem if you are not using for high processing tasks. And for laptop, right? Laptop is what we have just introduced, and for desktop is the bigger one, like what you see from the slide over there, the picture. And usually, if you are using the computer in a fixed place like an office, so I think desktop is more advisable because generally it is more stable compared to laptop, and laptop is very good if you are going out and you always work in the outside or something, or you can just carry it around. Another one.
No. I think I got something to talk about here, because sometimes my student also ask me if I get a tablet, it is good enough for me to attend the online classes. If you only want to attend online classes, the tablet is definitely more than enough. So you can get an iPad, which is from Apple. You can get Android-based tablet. But if you can notice, right, Mr. I think there are currently less and less producer and manufacturer for tablet. As compared to like some 10 years ago, we have a lot of different kind of tablets. Samsung is
Galaxy.
one of the leading, yes, 10.1 or whatever, 8-inch, 7-inch also. And then it start to get out from the market. Okay, so what we can think of is tablet is actually good for convenience. Okay, tablet is actually good for convenience, but it is not with enough processing power, right? So if you want to find a balance, right? Okay, if I would exit the solo view first, right? Okay, now if you want to find the balance, I would definitely recommend you to get a laptop, because laptop is not as big as a desktop. Okay, you can move the laptop to anywhere. It is also can be as powerful as a desktop. Okay,
exactly.
I think the main problem with laptop is it is not customizable. You cannot upgrade
less flexible to
You cannot
change the
upgrade
parts or something.
So if you have a desktop, right, you can use a desktop for 10 years without any problem, because you can always upgrade the components. But laptop, it is less flexible on that. Okay, so I think the computer manufacturer, they also come up with a lot of solutions, which they start to introduce a new generation of devices, which we can look at the next slide then. Okay,
tablet computer.
Yes, the tablet computer.
An example for this tablet computer, like Microsoft Surface.
Yeah, the one that you're using. So would you want to show to them? You know, I zoom it in first.
Okay, this is how it looks like, and you can actually see that
Windows logo, if you guys can
tablet
see it.
computer is very flexible in terms of the keyboard. You can just undetach it
this,
and you can just attach it in this way. So you can use it as a tablet. At the same time, you can also use it as a laptop, depending on your preference. And in terms of the function, I think this can be something that we can differentiate from a tablet.
Yes, it is actually a laptop I use a Surface before. It's very expensive, one thing. Okay. I think it is actually a laptop, but it's in a form of a tablet. Okay, so that is quite eye-opening, I would say, that Microsoft can actually come up with an idea years ago.
Another one is
you want to share? Okay.
Another choice with convertible laptop.
Yeah, convertible.
I have one unit here which looks something like this. That this is a laptop. And what does it mean by convertible? Because it can simply flip 360 degrees and it becomes
it looks like a tablet.
It looks like a tablet for you to hold and read. And yeah, it's very small and light. It's very easy for you to carry it anywhere, and you can just show you want to stand it in this way also can. It's very flexible. It has carry the same function as a laptop.
Yeah, I think this producer, they are really quite good in coming up with alternative
all the ideas
and alternative
different products.
There's one thing I want to highlight. Allow me to spend a bit more time here. This is the Chromebook. If you look at the slide at the bottom, here's a Chromebook. Now, what happened to this Chromebook is Google has joined the battle. to come up with their version of laptop, Chromebook. Okay, so this Chromebook, right, I never used before. Okay, it's kind of a new thing to me as well. I have done the research on YouTube, on web. I found that these are the things that originally they came up with the idea of Chromebook is they want to have something affordable. They're really affordable, and the user experience of using an Android phone is no difference of using a Chromebook. So basically, you are using a very big screen smartphone, but it's in the form of a laptop. Okay, so Chromebook assume you do everything on the browser. You don't save much things on the local. So if you got file, you upload to Google Drive. If you got any application, Microsoft Office, you use a web-based.
That is why the storage is generally smaller than the laptop.
Yeah, it's notably much smaller. Okay, 32, 64 GB only as compared to 512 in the laptop. So Chromebook is a good alternative for those who are on a tight budget and you may not want to use the device for a long time. Maybe just good enough for you to have 2 to 3 years studies for your college or universities. So that is a good alternative then. So what do we have next then? Operating system. Operating system.
Microsoft Office is the Microsoft Windows is the one that most of the computers are using, and also of course Mac operating system. But I'm not too sure because we seldom see this Penguin, Linus.
You can call it Linus, you can call it Linus, but based on the creator calls Linux. Okay, I don't think it's in English. Okay, Linux is its name actually. Linux. Okay. Now Linux, you can just forget about it because Linux is for server, for high-end processing, for large corporation, for company like Google's to use. Okay, so it is a bit unlikely that you get a chance to use Linux OS. I only used Microsoft Windows before. Okay, and it's good enough for me to, I'm 40 years old this year. So it's good enough for me to.
I think it's very general.
Yes, it's very general. All right. Mac is more for the high end, really for the graphic processing. And then the Chrome OS is for the Chromebook.
See. Graphic cards. Do I need graphic cards for my laptop actually?
I think if you look at what happened as of today, right? You may not buy a laptop for gaming, okay, but you still need to use it to attend online classes. So when you want to attend online classes, right, graphic card comes in very handy. So the function of graphic card is it will help to generate 3D images, 3D, 2D images. So if you have a graphic card on your laptop, desktop, it will definitely handle the online classes smoother, much better. Okay, then if you don't have one, you will just have to live with it. You may experience some lagging, some slowness, when you're using. And then for graphic card, we have two types. We got the integrated. So that means the processor will have another processing chip. So let me show you the processor. Okay, I zoom in again to let you see the processor that I have. Okay, which is this one. Right, this one. If you look at this, right, there's a gray dot in the center here. This is a processor chip. Okay. If this processor is with an integrated graphic, you will at least see two chips. One chip for processor, another chip for graphic, but this one is not.
So the graphic card is with the brain together.
Yeah. So the brain will look bigger. The brain, the motherboard, the board, because this daughter board, the motherboard is inside the laptop. This daughter board will be bigger to accommodate 2 to even 3 chips for the graphic. Okay, so if you can look at our slides here, let me exit the solo view. Okay, if you look at the slide here, on top here, we have the processor with the integrated, so you see a few chips inside. Now, if you purchase a gaming laptop, which can cost you, now as of today, a gaming laptop, it can go as cheap as 3,500, 3,500 ringgit. It can go up to more than 10,000 ringgit, depending on your need then. So gaming laptop will have a dedicated graphic card, which again, you look at the slide here, it is a much bigger board, and the whole thing is just for graphic alone. So if you compare the sizes, right, you can imagine how powerful a dedicated graphic card is in a laptop for this, as compared to a laptop. Okay, the integrated one. So would you need that? We do need that. It's good to have. And a lot of Intel processor, they have the integrated graphic built in. Like the one that I'm using for live stream now, it has the integrated one. It's good enough, for me to attend or even to conduct online classes. Okay, all right. So let's look at the next slide then. Let me share screen. Present. Okay, so these are the ports then. So what are the function of the ports? These are basically the connection point.
Besides the computer, you can see all these ports.
Yeah, the ports. Okay, so these ports are the connection point.
I think actually they are quite important because most of the time we might experience insufficient ports to use.
I think that is because you buy a lot of tiny devices. That's why, like Surface, you only have one USB port, right?
Yeah, only have
one. So a lot of laptop will come with 2. The more expensive one will have 3. Okay. So if you do not have enough ports, then you can just consider to have extension, like the one that I'm having here. So let me show you then. Okay, this one is additional USB extension. Okay, but this one has a problem here, is that if you load a lot of devices to this extension, you may experience insufficient power. So some devices might not run, might not move them. Right. So if you ask me, when I buy a laptop, should I consider the number of ports? And this is like what Mr. said. I think it is quite important to at least have 2 USB ports, at least. Okay, 2. Okay, then on top of the USB port, we also have the
HDMI.
The projector port.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing your projection regularly, then you may not care about it. But they will have at least a HDMI port.
I think it's a good point for our students to have 2 screens at the same time for their studies.
Yes,
they can extend a second monitor.
Yeah, monitors as of today, they are not that expensive. Okay, if you buy a new one, when you just about 400 ringgit, you can get one like 22-inch, right? If you buy a second-hand one, I think 200 ringgit or less than 200 ringgit, you can actually get a 19-inch to 22 inches. It definitely go easy on your eye. Okay, and then you can use the HDMI ports and just have to export out.
Can watch the monitor on the class slide, and while at the same time he or she can type out the answer.
Can type out. So I think the only thing I will recommend you to look into is your USB port. All these are Type-C, Lightning, and all these, you may not use them every day. Okay, but at least a USB port. You need to have at least 2. Like my laptop in front of me, you guys cannot see it. It has 3. So it comes very handy, very handy. 3 that I don't need to always use my extension port then, right? So I think we come to the last part already, which is the peripherals. So these peripherals are additional devices, equipments to add the functionality to your computer. All right. So we have this USB docking station, which you can look at the slide here. So you can plug in.
Helps you to add in a lot more
different types of connection, like your digital camera, your memory card. You can also use the docking station. Some laptop will have the port built in. All right. So we got the ergonomic keyboard as well. All right. So if you look at most of the keyboard, they are straight. Even the laptop keyboard, they are straight line. But the problem with our hand is we need to curve a little bit to put ourselves comfortable. So if the keyboard are straight, then we have to bend our hand a little bit in typing. So after a long time usage, I think we have experienced some discomfort to our hand here. So this kind of ergonomic keyboard, if you find that you use typing a lot of time, then you may want to buy them. And we got ergonomic mouse as well. And for the same reason, our hand shouldn't be bent for a long time. So we need to use a comfortable positions, the webcam and this, that. Now talking about webcam, right? If you don't spend money to buy a webcam, you can use your smartphone to be your webcam, like the one that we're having.
So don't throw away your smartphone.
If you have an old smartphone, just don't throw it away, because you can use your smartphone to be your camera, the one we are having. But I can't show you now because there's some problem with our second camera. Okay, so I initially thought I want to use the second camera to show you that we're actually using a phone, smartphone to be our webcam. So if you don't have a webcam, you don't need to spend money to buy one. You just use your phone. That would be good enough. So what you need to do is you just need to Google to find out what kind of apps that you need to install on your smartphone or your laptop to make it work. But it works. Okay, we are using one smartphone now for the live then. So continuing, we have mic then with or without noise cancelling. Okay, so for us classes teaching, we appreciate noise cancelling mic.
Okay, I'm very much appreciate
that. Teaching them, my daughter crying next to me, so they may not hear it so obviously. It is very, very important to us then. But one thing I noticed, I'm not sure whether you notice, is with noise cancelling function, our voice turned a bit weird.
Sometimes, yeah.
They do have some digital processing that they change our voice as well. Okay, so but then if it's just for normal teaching, not for singing, using a noise cancelling mic is actually a good idea. Okay, for singing you cannot use a noise cancelling mic.
I think it's very much better for the audience.
Yes. For I think for our classes, yes. Okay, so you might want to consider earphone, earbud. You know the trend of the wireless earbud. Do you have any?
I have one.
You have one.
Yeah.
Do you use them often?
Quite often.
I find that their life is quite short. Is that I think about 1 year plus they die. You can't charge anymore. They are not cheap to buy and they are not having a long life here. To me, I think the earbud is quite fancy. It looks modern, but it is not definitely economical. It's definitely not. I still appreciate my wired.
But the wire one a bit. I think it's more comfortable to have the wireless one.
Really, but you have to fork out money every year to buy a new one. I think so because I have 3 sets. Okay, one with noise cancelling function is about 300 ringgit. Recently, after 20 minutes, it died off.
Oh,
it claimed to have 4 hours life, but now at full charge, 20 minutes it die off like that. So I don't know. It's just like less than 2 years only, and I'm not using it every day. That is the problem then.
Durability,
the wire one is the best one. Unless you want to look modern, then you can go for a wireless. Which I think economically wise is not really there. The reason. Okay, so we have speaker, and then these writing tablets. If you look at the slide on here, it's not a screen for you to write things. So this is more for you if you want to involve in graphic. To me, I use this to write when I teach. So I know a lot of artists, they use the graphic artists, they use this to draw things.
Some of the writing tablet with the screen.
With the screen, they're more expensive. The one that I'm showing you is the exact model that I'm using. It costs about 300 ringgit, 350 ringgit. The one with screen can cost you more than 1,000 ringgit.
Yeah. I saw the price.
But normal use, you don't need that. You may want to consider this if you draw a lot of things, you write a lot of things, you can consider writing tablets then, right? So I think our sharing should end at this point, all right? So if you guys have any question, you can just post a question to the chat box there. Okay, we'll try to answer you if we can. And alternatively, if after the live session, if you still have any questions regarding your study, if you can see on the screen here, we are the ACCA provider. Okay, we are the Gold Status provider. And we are also the Human Resource Development Corporation approved learning center. So we can provide training to companies and this, that. And I myself is a certified trainer of HRTC, right? So you can contact us via all this website, email, phone number, and also our address to visit us. All right. So maybe we wait for the audience for about 1 or 2 minutes to see if they have any questions.
Sure, no problem.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just. Okay, I think there's no questions, but as I said just now, if you guys have any question regarding computer, regarding the studies of ACCA, HRDC course, you can just contact us then. So I thank you for your watching tonight. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yes, I'm going to see you again soon. One